Hello and welcome to another episode of my Let's Play World of Tanks. My name's Darkling and this is a recap of the tournament that we were in about a week ago. The Tier 7 Battle for Monte Cassino sort of tournament thing they had going on. It was a 31 point limit with the max tier being Tier 7 as I said, but that max tier applies to your heavies and mediums. Your scouts and artillery were listed at being Tier 4 and below for scout, no, Tier 5 and below, I'm sorry. And then I believe the TDs were also Tier 7. Either 6 or 7, I don't remember. I didn't see any TDs used when we played. But, anyway, so the process of which that I went to go and set up our team for this tournament was a little different than normal. Rather than going with the standard team that I usually go with, a strong, competitive team that we've always played together, the same 5 people with 2 extras or whatever, I really wanted to get new members involved. So I put up a post on the forums that we run, and I set it up so that we would have just people would post what tanks they had that they could actually use, and if they had any experience before. I actually didn't want people who had experience because I kind of wanted to give them a shot. Because, sometimes people get left behind, and it's not really fair for them that they can't get involved in the tournaments if, the same 5, 6, 7, 8 people keep applying, keep getting in every time over them. So I wanted to change things up a bit, allow the new people in the clan to get involved, allow them to, experience what the competitiveness of this game is, have a little fun, something they normally wouldn't be able to, and kind of the purpose of this clan, again, was to allow the, the casual people to get involved in just as much high-end content as I can possibly allow them to. So I wanted to make them feel included. So I set it up. We took a bunch of applications, or not applications, that's the wrong term to use. They posted who was able to play on the dates, and then of course what tanks they'd provide. So we ended up with a few new people, and it's not a complete list of everyone, but it's more people got involved in it than would normally have been able to if we just went around with the same normal, 6 people. So it was nice to see our new people get out here. They had the tanks we needed, so it really worked out for the better. I mean, they were able to compete and help out and get involved, as opposed to just kind of sit in the sidelines with the tank we probably weren't going to be able to use. So overall, I believe it was the great way to really organize things, to allow everyone to get involved. So our tank choices, though, we wanted a kind of a balanced list. So for the majority of the tournament, we ran with an artillery piece, which was a Tier 5, either a Hummel or an M41. We also went with a Tier 5 Scout, which was preferably a VK2801 using gold rounds, because of the simple fact that he would be doing about 300 damage anytime that he penetrated, and a penetration on that, what is that, well, the 105 is actually pretty good with the gold rounds. So overall, that was our 2 Tier 5s, and then we'd have the ability to use 3 Tier 7s. We decided that the Tiger P was probably going to be the best Tier 7 that we could field. Unfortunately, we only had one available to us, so we had just 1 Tier 7 Tiger P. Then we ran with 2 T29s. So our backups, all they had were artillery and scouts, so we just simply rotate them in and out as we needed to. And it kind of worked out alright. I mean, the standard group of the 3 that played the heavies, at least that way they knew what they were doing, allowing the scout and the artillery to kind of change things up a bit, work out their strategies and what they needed to do. So, with the T29, we figured it was the second best option over the well, under the Tiger P, over the IS, and definitely over the Tiger. The IS and the Tiger would have been good choices, but they weren't necessarily my favorite choices to use. Just the IS, slightly weaker armor, and then the Tiger, definitely very weak armor. The T29 had the excellent turret on it, so it could sit there and take hits all day long if you simply put a little hold down action on it, and you don't have a problem then. So as you can see here, I took a bunch of hits, but none of it really did any damage to me because it was all mostly hitting my turret. Shooting at such a long range, that was the only target they really had that they could shoot at. So, with that being said, the Tiger P obviously has the best front armor with a solid 200 for his front, about 100 something on the front of the turret, but still, the majority of the body is, 200, thus it provided such great protection that it could sit there and take hits all day long. Plus the 88 on that thing with gold rounds is still going to be phenomenal. Now, normally we obviously wouldn't use gold rounds in pub matches, but, you know, for tournaments, gold rounds are kind of necessity. Everyone uses them. You need them just to get that extra penetration that you can. And those who don't are obviously going to go up against tanks like the Tiger P and not be able to penetrate. So we were banking on the fact that not everyone was going to be using gold rounds, and so they're going to go up against the Tiger P or the T-29 and be deflecting off the hull or the turret. So, with that said, we kind of ended up running gold rounds. The tanks that we chose did work out pretty well. I believe the only time that we wouldn't use gold rounds is when we were running the T50-2, because the 57mm on that thing fires fast enough and does enough penetration and damage that when you're running around a target anyway, you're not going to necessarily be concerned with lining up that shot to get the penetration. You're just going to be spamming rounds, and there's not a whole lot you can do. You just fire away and hope for the best. Now, the T-29, it has the 90mm on it, which is not good. The 105mm was actually the better choice, so obviously we went with that and the upgraded turret with the elephant ears on it. The elephant ears have since been patched since way back when in the day, where they were able to be penetrated by anything under the sun. Now with the upgraded turret, the upgraded gun, using gold rounds, the T-29 did make a solid second choice. Again, we only had access to one Tiger P. I guess I could have purchased a Tiger P for this event, but I wouldn't have had everything unlocked, and personally I was more comfortable in the T-29, so that's why I ended up going with that. Now, it really does come down to what you're more comfortable with in terms of what you end up wanting to play with. Personal experience helps a lot. If you go into a tournament with a fresh tank you've never played before, obviously you're not going to know the nuances of it. You're not going to know the ins and outs, what makes it good, what makes it bad, how to work around the small flaws, so on and so forth. So we ended up going with tanks that we were comfortable with. Luckily, we had people... Well, one of our members was unable to participate, so he swapped out accounts with another person in our group, and thus was able to still keep his Tiger P, and luckily that person had experience in a Tiger P and weren't going into it blind. But we did have Creekman in the other T-29, and he had experience in that thing as well, so we were able to at least have people with experience in the tanks that they were in. Our artillery people were familiar enough with their artillery, the scouts were familiar enough with their scouts. And so, overall, our experience was solid enough that we were happy with our tank selection. And really, again, if we went with any mediums, I don't think the mediums would have been very competitive. We were looking at maybe the T-34-85, but it really just didn't seem like it would be strong enough. And of course, the T-20 is just paper-thin armor. I also didn't feel that would be great. Now, in another match, we end up seeing the VK-3002 Bravo, and that thing actually was a somewhat solid choice as a medium. I'm not necessarily sure I would have went with it, just out of the sake that I'm not a fan of it per se, and I prefer the tank choices that we made, but I can see it being a very valid selection. It worked out for them, as you'll see in the coming match here, but overall, I felt that we made solid choices. It worked out best for us. Oh yeah, we did end up seeing TDs here, the IS-7, but it really didn't work out too well for him because the IS-7, or not IS-7, ISU-152, or no, SU-152, I apologize, man, I'm getting my words all confused here. See, he misses me somehow right there, and then it's going to take him so long to reload, it's just going to be pointless for him, and I'm going to be able to go right through him. So, with that, there's not a whole lot that in the TD line that would have been, you know, favorable in my opinion. Yeah, the SU-152 with the 122 on it would have been great for the simple fact that it does a lot of damage, but its mobility is not that good in terms of, you know, peeking around corners for this map. You have to kind of go flat on and hope for the best, and by going flat on, you're exposing yourself to tons of fire, like this SU did. It doesn't have the mobility or the ability to go hold down or poke around corners or use its turret above rocks or anything like that that the heavies did. And as I said, the mediums, none of them really suited our taste. I couldn't see I don't know, I really couldn't see anything in the medium line being all that effective that was going to be preferable over the T-29s or the Tiger Ps. Obviously, more Tiger Ps would have been the best choice, but for what we were doing, this worked. Now, we did spread people out a little thin, but our strategy overall makes sense. and I will cover our strategy in the next part of this video when I go into the next round here. As for this one, we're finishing up this one. We won our first match. Well, we won our second match technically, and move on to the third now. So for this map, we decided to do things a little differently than what we normally would for this type of a map. Instead of, stacking one side or pushing up the valley or anything like that, we decided our best bet would probably be to actually go and spread ourselves out, have people watching on each end with, interlapping fire, so that way two tanks would generally be able to see the same target. But also, we wanted to have it spread out so in case people decided to try and run past us, we would be able to spot them in time that the tanks would be able to retreat, pull back, and take care of the tanks that are heading past our forces. Especially when we spread out, we put the Tiger P, down at the bottom of the villa, kind of in between the Hourglass and the Villa Road, so that way he could counter either which direction, and additionally, he could be able to see into the valley when they come up from there, or he'd be able to see on top of the Rocky Mountains and help up on that side. Myself, I ended up going up on top of the mountains myself and stuffed into a section of bushes where it's very difficult to see me until you pretty much are on top of my position. So from there, I could also cover the exit of the Villa Road, along with the lower Villa Road, and of course the Rocky area whenever they were to come around that side. Otherwise, we had the last T-29, Creekman, sitting back kind of in base, being able to watch the Hourglass, the Villa Road, right onto my position, and additionally he'd also be able to watch the Valley Road in case anyone decided to come up that way. It kind of created some overlapping fire. Also we would be able to retreat, reposition as needed. Our artillery would be able to hit things as he saw. And then of course the scout was kind of given free rein to allow to do whatever he felt needed to be able to find the enemy. Priority was of course to take out artillery, which in our second round here we did not encounter any artillery, but rather to go ahead and take out whatever tanks he could, especially with that 10.5 centimeter gun of his with the 300 damage gold rounds that he was using. So with given free rein to him, he kind of was able to do his own thing without us having to worry too much. In this first one, we got lucky and took out both scouts right off the bat. That certainly gave us a leg up in this competition, or at least this round here. Of course, we sat around for a little bit, not knowing where they would come from, so that was one of our strategies, was to wait until the 5-minute mark before we moved out. Of course, we probably should have readjusted this for about the 7-minute mark, not knowing the speeds of these tanks, and assuming that we would kind of come across them one at a time, be able to take them out, or two at a time, and be able to concentrate our fire taking them all out. So we waste time, we dwindle down the clock, let it run down to about the 5-minute mark, and from there we were able to continue on with our strategy here. Otherwise, we were just kind of waiting time, seeing if they would eventually make the move. Of course, being under strength right now, kind of was unlikely that they were going to move. Our SPG kept a lookout on the ready in case we did eventually find anyone, but overall, they were not going to move anywhere. They were going to probably stay put where they were and hope for the best, hoping that we'd come to them. Of course, hindsight is 20/20, as thinking about it later on, we really should have moved a lot earlier. We, of course, did not know where they were, but waiting down till the 5-minute mark does not give you a lot of time or leeway with which to operate in case you come across any obstacles or any problems. It really does mean you have to get up, get going, and hop right on the cap right away. So, moving at the 5-minute mark probably was not the best of ideas, but it was our strategy at the time, and was what we were planning to do, to go ahead and move at the 5-minute mark, take care of things at that point in time, and hopefully push hard and strong to get on top of the cap and start capping, or at least force them to return, and thus being able to take them out one by one, or in whatever group they came in. So, as we whittled down the clock, we kind of readjusted what we were going to do. I went ahead and decided that I was going to go ahead and push through the rocky cliffs while making the Tiger P head through the Hourglass and readjusting the T-29 to sit at base for just a little bit before go ahead and progressing through the villa itself. So we move out, go ahead and decide to bring the artillery over to support me just in case I come across anything, not knowing where the rest of the army is, but he'd also have good range on top of anyone else. seeing as that he would be able to shoot anyone from the hourglass area all the way to the spawn. But also the main important thing was to take care of the cliffside, the rocky mountain area that I'm going to be in, so that way if anything were to happen, he'd be able to give me the support that I needed. Now, Creekman, our other T-29, was moving so that he would cover the Villa Road until he was able to get over there and get ready. Now, when I moved across this area, I was not expecting to see all three of them, but as you're about to see here, I come across all of them, not expecting it, not knowing what to do at first, and just having to start taking pot shots left and right, and trying to take my way through, or dig my way through the enemy forces. We do have our Tiger P, though, moving to go ahead and get into the cap. He's going to take the long way around, though, just to make sure that they don't have anything hiding in the back of their base, because the last thing you want to do is kind of roll up and have your side flank exposed. We wanted to have him come around so that his front was always exposed to the areas that we've already scouted. So I managed to find their T-29 over here. Nothing I could do from that front because that turret's so strong, but the artillery certainly can have a great shot on where he's at. And of course, our artillery, tried and true, trusted KJ, he put one right into where the T-29 actually was. Of course, he went dark before we saw it, but he definitely did the damage that we needed to. It allowed me to definitely get up there, dish out the damage that I wanted to, not to have to worry too much. Now, where I said that all three were over in this position, I was wrong. Actually, one of the tanks that was over in the center villa area was the VK-3002P, or B, rather, Bravo. Yep. So he certainly was a surprise and was keeping me from being able to completely swarm on top of this IS. He kept me in check, and we needed to push Creekman up there at that point in time to deal with him, because otherwise, as you see here, I got killed from both the fire of the IS and the VK in the center. And we needed to do something about it to kind of collapse upon him. Now, we finally were able to get the Tiger P into the cap zone and start going ahead and taking the cap. From here, wasn't really a whole lot else we were worried too much about, other than moving across with our T-29, and eventually we figured we might as well throw our M41 into the mix, get him capping as well, because we figured it would be more people on the cap zone, thus getting the cap quicker, and also the stronger cap, having two tanks, you have two people sharing the burden as opposed to just one, so if they were to destroy one person, there'd still be another one. This, of course, again, hindsight, was probably not the best of ideas, as we could have used his firepower for taking out any of the tanks that we were not able to see right away. So with the M41 on the move, our T-29 heading into the villa, and the Tiger P on the cap, we sort of had a strong advantage at the moment. We had a cap going, we had pressure being put on the one tank left in the center, but the problem was our Tiger P was a little too far forward, that he was more exposed and doing himself, or not doing himself any favors by being in the position he was. So we were able to push up just a little bit. Everyone was able to take some shots on the VK in the center of the villa, and of course it took a little bit longer than we wanted to take care of him. Just enough time for the IS to get into position to also start affecting our Tiger P. But with the M41 getting into the cap, our cap movement finally decided to start increasing, and of course that double damage we were talking about on the cap value certainly started to go up. But the problem is the M41 did not position himself where I had hoped he would. I'd hoped that he'd put himself in the back corner, somewhere out of the way, and also in the shadow of the Tiger P, so that the Tiger P would be absorbing any rounds for him, especially with that huge thick front armor of his. Then again, with the IS probably using gold rounds, there's no way we would have known if it would stop it, but at least the M41 would have had a nice cover, even if the Tiger P died. So unfortunately, the M41 dies, thus rendering us with just the one tank in the cap zone and not enough time to complete it. So we go ahead and try and push the T-29 as fast and as hard as we can. The IS is long gone, nowhere to be seen, already hiding, because he knows that he has done his job. From now on, anything that he does will only get him in trouble. He needs to go and hide. And so I cannot blame him. That's a very sound strategy. So trying to push up as hard as we can, trying to get that T-29 up in there in time. We're so close to getting that cap off, getting the victory in the first round, but the time just ticks down, ticks away. Not enough time for us to get up in there, not enough time for us to get the cap. So close, nothing we could do. Very good strategy, but again, we should have pushed harder sooner. Moving at the 5-minute mark was the thing that hurt us. So, with our backs against the wall, as you only need 2 wins to continue, we decided to be a little more aggressive with this one, and seeing what we could do if we... Well, no, sorry. We weren't down any points yet. We wanted to be a little aggressive to try and take the fight to them, as we knew kind of what their idea was now and their strategy. And we wanted to kind of put the pressure on, see if we could force a win by taking them out. We decided to hold to the same strategy, of course placing our tanks in the same general spots, just on the reverse side of the map. Myself kind of behind the 2 rock, with the Tiger piece still in the center of the villa. The Scout, of course, having his free reign, and the other T-29 back at base just enough to cover for as long as we needed him to before he moves up. My position, though, is kind of precarious because there's no real very covering spot like the other side of the map where I was able to hide in the bushes for as long as I wanted to. This one would rely on myself taking a lot of different hold down positions. Of course, this gives me better survivability with my turret armor, but it doesn't give me much in the way of camo so that I could spring a trap in case they were to come hunt me down. Now, the other team seemed to pull a very smart trick, which was to lay in wait and to just be patient. I found that it's very difficult in this game to maintain patience throughout a tournament. It's just, it gets to you after a little bit. The one who does wait out the longest generally seems to do a little better. Being aggressive, you really need to run in packs. You can't do the single individual person thing. You need to go in the whole group, or you sit back and wait and spring your trap as needed. This is, of course, going to get myself into trouble, but, you know, you do what you can. It's not exactly the best sound strategy. So we go ahead and we send our scout up to try and find where the enemy positions are. We don't know exactly where they are yet. We don't know where they are. We didn't know if they were going to do the same trick or not. And as the scout will find in just a second, yes, they did obviously decide to pull somewhat of the same trick here. The scouts obviously went to the center, which we found earlier, but the heavies and the medium were back in the opposite side, generally in the same position that they were in the previous round. We go ahead and we send the Tiger P up into the villa to try and hunt down those scouts, just to see if we can't find them, take them out, and go ahead and progress around to the back of the base. Whereas myself, I'm going to focus on trying to take out the heavy tanks, along with using the support of the M41, try and whittle them down one at a time. Hopefully I'd be able to take them. Of course, I'm probably going to bite off a little more than I can chew. Not exactly the best of ideas here to try and go toe-to-toe with a VK, what was that thing, 3002 Bravo, a T-29, and an IS. So I'm just trying to spot him for the artillery. He's getting ready, whereas our Tiger P is kind of going to look for the scouts, but not really finding much, so not very helpful at the moment. So I do end up finding the tanks. Our artillery is able to range in, take some shots. I'm able to put some shots on the tanks, but this IS does the smart thing, and he actually closes the gap on me to help prevent the artillery from being able to target him specifically. So now the artillery is going to focus in on the T-29 as opposed to the IS, which poses the biggest threat to me right now, simply because the distance between he and I are so short that a shot would risk hitting me, and he's also into a covered position now that the artillery can't hit him so easily. So now I was focused on this tank, didn't notice that our artillery piece had died due to scouts being able to infiltrate our base back through the hourglass, which our T-29 at the time is trying to deal with the best he can. But they, of course, are pulling some very genius maneuvers, just enough to spot him, take a pot shot here or there, but of course progressing back behind cover as needed, trying to draw him out, trying to draw him into a position that he can't take care of. So we go ahead and send our Tiger P back to assist him as best we can, try and form a nice solid defense to counter anything they're going to throw at us. But sadly, their scouts are spotting him, doing what they can to see him and take care of him, and our Tiger P is not going to get there in time to help him. He's now going to be hit by all those heavy tanks that I couldn't deal with. So he now is facing the full brunt of the T-29 the VK, and the IS, with the scouts also throwing in their shots wherever they can. So he's going to, of course, get whittled down. Nothing he could do here. He did the best he could, but sadly, it was just not a good position for him. So Tiger P is going to go ahead. He's going to get almost back to base. He's going to get distracted by the T-50 Mark II, which honestly was a mistake. The T-50 Mark II was only going to do light damage to him at best. Yeah, it'd do rapid fire shots on him, but overall it would not do nearly enough damage to really become a burden, as he's only doing about 50 damage a shot now. So he gets distracted with the fact he's getting hit from behind by that T-50 Mark II, as opposed to noticing the VK 2801, which is hitting him with gold rounds from the front, dealing, of course, the 300 damage that I was talking about, making it one of the best tier 5 scouts for a tournament like this. So he finally gets around to focusing in on the VK, but just not enough time. Ends up getting hit by all the tanks around him and just getting killed. So slight misstep there in communication, slight misstep in tactics. Backs are now against the wall here, and we go down 0-1. So with the idea of we have to push together now, we decide to be aggressive. We send Creekman with myself. We already assume they're going to pull the same sort of tactic. It's kind of a given at this point. So we go ahead and we push the two T-29s up to the hill. The Tiger P is going to go to the base of the villa again just to provide cover while the scout does his thing. Predictably, we find the scouts already cruising into the center of the villa, but we're able to push them back pretty quickly. They kind of break off and do their own thing. Our scout found him. He's going to go ahead and turn around. Our artillery piece missed him. So they did what they were supposed to do. They saw what they were going to see, and of course it told us exactly what we thought we were going to learn, that they were going to run the exact same strategy that they did the first round, and so we need to be ready to take them out. That's why we did end up sending our two T-29s. We figured it was going to happen, so we did at least guess it right. So now we're going to push that way. Our little scout is going to go ahead and run through the hourglass. Our Tiger P is still going to remain at base, though, because we're just not sure where those scouts are going to run, and we need our artillery alive to help take on these tanks. So we do end up finding the VK first. We take some shots at him the best we can. He's going to be in a pretty good position, but we're also going to lead to a little bit of miscommunication between Creekman and myself. I keep pressing on to try and find the rest of the tank group and to try and flank around this VK, whereas he kind of stops to engage at range. That was the problem. I had thought he was going to continue along the low road with me while I took the high road, and we were eventually going to come and pincer them in between in that middle section, but he had stopped to engage at range, and I was not aware of this as I got caught in the middle of battle. So the red lust eventually got to me, and it's going to cause me some problems as I get stuck up here alone. Now, the T-29 has a really great hold down position there. There's not a lot I can do against him where he's at, and as you saw, he just bounced right off the top of my turret. So, no damage to each other. I didn't even waste the shot because I knew we weren't going to be doing anything but trading shot for shot. I tried to zoom in there, take out his commander hatch, but luckily for him, it just glanced right off the top, skirted off to the middle of nowhere. Now, our scout ends up finding their other two scouts at the low road, but he ends up getting destroyed rather quickly to the swarm, and our artillery misses with his shot to try and take him out. Luckily, our Tiger P noticed this, what was going on, and went ahead to roll into that position to get ready for him, whereas I'm sitting here taking on the brunt of these forces while our other T-29 is still hanging back, engaging at range. So our Tiger does run into them, finds them, takes care of the one, the VK, not a problem, and then has to go and chase after the T-29, or not T-29, the T-50 Mark II, as now the VK-2801 is out of commission. So I now have a few tanks on my case here. The IS is hit pretty bad, but the T-29 totally unharmed, just comes strolling around this front arm. Not a problem at all coming at me. The T-20 or T-50 Mark II takes out our artillery without a problem, as he got past the Tiger, and the Tiger's still trying to chase him down. It was just bad luck on our artillery's part that he was in the position that he was, and our Tiger was unable to catch him. So it leaves us with just our two tanks, the T-29 and the Tiger P, against pretty much a full army. Of course, the slightly damaged IS is not going to be in the front lines. It's going to be the T-29. So we get a lucky shot here, one-shotting the T-50 Mark II, but only to find the T-29 here ready and waiting, along with the IS followed right behind. Now, if we had managed to land this hit on the the IS rather, it would have cleared him out, but it wouldn't have made that much of a difference. And even a shot to the T-29 would have done nothing more than just lower his health for the Tiger P. Now, sadly, the Tiger P took some pretty good hits from those scouts. Again, that VK 2801 has some very good damage to it when equipped with gold rounds in that 10.5 centimeter. So it had whittled down this Tiger 2, or not Tiger 2, the Tiger P, to less than what's needed, and it just became pretty much a story of just a matter of time here, as the VK 3002 Bravo is able to circle around, get him from behind, and take him out. So that eliminated us from the tournament, and sadly, that was our one game that we had, our one good match. Very tough clan, very good guys. Hopefully they went on to it. I stopped following the tournament shortly after this. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode. This was a rather complex episode, and it's rather late right now, as you could probably tell by my voice. So, I want to thank you guys for tuning into this one. Twitter's down below. Comments, questions, concerns are always appreciated. Ratings, I appreciate subscriptions, etc., etc. Next episode, I want to do an FAQ, so post any questions you have. I know everyone's asking about what mods I use. I'll try and do what I can to get those in there. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you guys in the next episode.